Right guys, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how I do like a quick master when I'm on my laptop and things, if I'm away from the studio and I'm working on stuff, just so that we can get it out and play it in the club and see how it sounds on the dance floor, okay? So if you want to find out how I master things sort of like more effectively, check out the Tech Tools tips that we did for Sonic Academy as well, and I've done a whole little thing on mastering, on how I master my stuff. Okay, so this is the setup that I've got on my laptop. Now, here's a different project page. I actually have a mastering page which is already set up, which I've given you with all these videos as well. Where I've just got one channel where I put my unmastered WAV on, and my output which has got the plugins that I use. So first of all, what you need to do is just import your bounce that we've just done. So wherever you've hidden that file or whatever, wherever it is, just drag that in and drag it straight onto a channel and it'll come onto there. Okay, and then after that, all I've done is I've just put like a little fade on the end just to sort of smooth it off and round off the ends. So if we just listen to that, there we go. There we go, that just top and tails it and rounds it off. Okay, so that's all nice and clean. And we just double check to make sure that there's no like clipping or anything, and that it's, you've got plenty of headroom there for your master. There, just flick through at the loudest points and you can see on there. Okay, so first of all, what I do is I put a T-Rax 3 EQ on there. Now as you can see, it's pretty dramatic as the EQing on this, but I do squash it back down. So what I do is I bring the mids out and bring the tops. And sometimes, like I can, pump the bottom end a little bit as well, just to give it a little bit more punch or whatever. So that's just a rough EQ. And then what I do is I dip out by a couple of dB at 200 Hz and again at 3 kHz. And what that does is it gives it sort of modern sound, and it adds like a little bit of space. And it just takes a few like the boxy frequencies out and a few of the sort of harsher frequencies in the mid range, mid to top, that just aren't too good on your ear. So just dip them out a little bit. So if you want to listen to that, just brings out a bits of bite in the bits that you want in there. The next thing I've got on there is one of the SSL compressors, and again this is just a really nice thing to use as glue, which just like plumps it all together without affecting the sound too much. So if I play with this on and off, so this is without it. Now on this I don't go too crazy with it. I've got my attack at 3, I've got my ratio at 4, so it is doing quite a bit of work. I leave the release on auto because it sounds really good on the SSL compressor, and just give it a little bit of volume on the makeup, not too much. And I don't want it compressing any more than sort of like by like -4 dB. It's just a little bit to give it that squash. So then we end up with this. There we go. The next up, the lifesaver really is Ozone 5, which is great because you can just use this on its own as a mastering tool. But what I tend to find is I've just tweaked with certain things in there that I like to use. So first of all, we've got the dynamics on there. We've just got a compressor on there which is giving it a nice bit of squash. This is just a preset that I used as well, which I can't actually remember what it was called. Let me have a nosy. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just tweaked around with it after I put it on there. So yeah, we've just got a compressor on there which just does a little bit more squashing. We've got the stereo imager on there which gives you that nice bit of fizz and spread in the top end. Now in bandwidth 1 you can see here it's like a little bit like a multiband compressor. You don't want anything going on in there, and you really don't want too much going on in sort of like your bass mid, like low mid range, because you can get all sorts of kinds of like phasing, and you can just like ruin your track doing that. So if we go into band 3, we're just literally giving it 20%, not a lot. There we go, just bring that up, and then we've given it 50% in band 4, and that just spreads the sort of like fizziness in the top ends. And then the other thing we've got on there is like a post EQ, and this is like an EQ after we've done all the compression. And it's a mid-side EQ, so what we've done is we've left the mid pretty flat really, but the sides, what we've done is we've taken out all the bottom end because we don't want any of it in the sides. If you understand how mid-side works, it's different to left and right. It's like everything you have in your middle, like your kick and your bass, doesn't have any sides, that's straight down the middle. But then things like hi-hats and things that are recorded in stereo, they have this like the sides to the middle as well. And what this does is that just EQs them separately. So we've just added a little bit around 16k just for a nice little bite and a bit of fizz. And we just want a little bit in the mid-range as well. Sort of around 2 works quite nicely, just a little bit, and it just brings everything out slightly. Now another thing I do, if things are punching a bit heavy and there's a little bit too much bottom end going on, you can just sort of like tighten that up using this and just bring that slightly down as well, which tends to work. And if you want to bring any more punch out, you can just do a little bit in there. So it's quite an accurate EQ, and it's not very colourful. It doesn't add like texture and tone so much like the T-Rax one does. It's just dead accurate if you want to add and take things away. And the only other thing we've got going on in the Ozone really is the harmonic exciter, which it just does something to the sound. And it's not something I understand too much about. But it adds frequencies in certain areas, and again this is just something I've left on from the preset. Now one thing I have taken off from here is the maximizer, which is Ozone's limiter. Now I prefer the FabFilter limiter Pro L. It's I don't know, you seem to be able to push things further and get them louder without sacrificing too much, and it's got a nice sound to it. So we turn that off, bring that off there, and then we go to Pro L. Now Pro L's brilliant, I love this, and all the presets in it are wicked as well, so you don't have to mess around too much. Like on this one I use House Squeezed and Stylish, and it gives you a nice sort of squash sound. If you've got a lot going on in your track as well, the trance ones work really well as well, the transparent, that's really, really good. And even like Pop, Safe and Fluffy, very safe, they're all really good presets, and it's just all to do with the amount of attack and release really that's going on in the actual limiting. Okay, so what we do is we listen to it with the Ozone 5 on before I go to the limiter first actually. There you go, you can see it's sort of like everything sounds squashed, but it sounds really sort of like almost clinical, and you get that like lamination. Sounds like it's been laminated. Okay, so all we've got to do now is flatten it using the limiter. So if we open the Pro L, and you can see how far you can sort of push this. So if we open the multimeter, this is how I sort of judge my limiting. There you can see, if you can push your RMS between 10 and 5, minus 10 and 5 dB, you know that your mix down, everything's sat well in your mix because nothing's distorting while you're pushing it. And you're not sacrificing too much in your track. And I mean, especially with this kind of music, it is very sort of like hard limited and hard compressed, so it works really well. But I aim for between the 10 and 5 there to get my loudness. And then it's just a case of just listening to it. You know, keeping an eye on the levels on the multimeter, make sure there's not too much bottom end coming below 31 Hz because you can't really hear it, you just feel it. You know, and just, you know, make sure everything sounds right, everything sits well. And once you're happy with that, it's just a case of bouncing it again, and all you do is click the bounce button at the bottom of your channel and type whatever you want to save it as. So this is the Brain Freeze, and then what we do now is you can change this back down to 16-bit, and you've got your normalise. You want your normalise on there, and this is where you can use your dither. Now, I'm not too fond on using the Logix one. I tend to think it sounds a little bit too, like, I don't know, clinical. It's just a sound that I don't really like. Whereas inside this little beauty on the Pro L, you've got dither at the bottom. So if you just make sure that's on 16-bit, and then you still don't need to use it in there, okay? And the dither that you get out of that sounds pretty cool. So dither's not something you can obviously hear as well. It's like something that it's just there, but it's not there. And as you sort of train your ears when you're making music, you start to notice which ones sound different when you're using your tracks, okay? Making your tracks. So once you've got that all set, if you want to bounce an MP3 as well, just click onto MP3, select what you want to bounce it as, and then click bounce. So that is literally how we make a track from start to finish, right up to making a quick master to play in a club. The only other thing we do is, depending on record labels and like who's signing releasing the track, sometimes they want their own mastering, so we just send them the bounce WAV that we've done from the process before this, but we still use ours to play in the clubs. So I hope this has all been very helpful for you. I'm Alex from The Squatters signing out. Don't forget to check us out on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/The Squatters, facebook.com/The Squatters, and also the-squatters.com. Thanks a lot, and we'll catch you soon.